up, good people of the Grayscale? It's Monday morning at 9 o'clock, which means it's time for 10 Minutes with Tim, where I give you 10 minutes worth of my 2 cents. And I don't even know if I have 10 minutes worth of my 2 cents. So just so everybody that's watching knows, whether you're watching on Instagram or Facebook, I'm actually live right now on the Grayscale Facebook on one device and on the Instagram on another device. So I kind of got like a camera 1, camera 2 situation going on. So I'm probably going to keep kind of bouncing around with my face looking at different cameras. But point being, so if you see me looking off into the distance, that's why. So anyway, it's Monday. So this is what happened. Here's the deal. So Saturday night on the main show, the Grayscale podcast show, we talked about a little bit towards the end. We started getting into some stuff about religion and about how Christianity is kind of easy, right? Like Jesus came along and said, love God and love your neighbor, right? Look, love your neighbor. I'm on love your neighbor shirt on. So like, that made things pretty simple, right? Like all you have to do is love God and love your neighbor. That sounds simplistic. And I'm not going to this isn't a religious episode necessarily. I just want to bring that up, that we kind of talked about that on Saturday night's show, because yesterday at church, the message was about, it's weird how this works, right? The message was about how it's easy to be a Christian, but it's hard to be a Jesus follower. And I was like, we just talked about this last night on the show about how it's easy to be a Christian. And I was like, but I didn't think of the addendum of it's difficult to be a Jesus follower. So like but again, that's kind of not where I want to go with the show today. What I really wanted to talk about was how when there's something that you need to hear, or something that you need to see, or a sign or whatever, right? Sometimes it's so obvious and in your face that you don't even notice it until it's almost too late, right? Like, it's obvious that there's a reason that Saturday night we talked about this thing, and then Sunday morning at church someone else talked about this thing, where in a position where I was paying attention to them, right? So there's obviously something going on there where I should be paying attention, right? It's something that I should be paying attention to. And that happens in our lives all the time, where it's obvious, it's clear that there's a message that we're supposed to receive. The question is, do we receive it? And do we take the time to pay attention to it and figure out what's really going on? So like, I've got to dig a little bit deeper now, right, into this whole, like, it's easy to be a Christian, but it's difficult to be a Jesus follower. And like, one of the things that we talked about yesterday at church was how after the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus comes down from giving the Sermon on the Mount, which is like the big introduction to Jesus as a rabbi and a teacher, and like where he starts really gaining ground with some real followers and real disciples, right? He comes down from the Sermon on the Mount, and there's a leper, who essentially, lepers are like, you don't go near lepers, right? And he heals the leper. Everyone knows the story, if you've been around church at all. you know the story. Jesus heals the leper, which is all good and fine because the leper is a Jewish man. Just like Jesus, the Jewish people help the Jewish people, and it makes sense that Jesus would help this man. But right after that, a Roman centurion approaches and says that he needs help with something. And what's going on there? Oh, okay, never mind. A Roman centurion approaches and says that he needs help with something, and Jesus helps him too, which is like completely unheard of, because these are the people that have been oppressing and putting into slavery and all of this stuff, Jesus's people, for hundreds of years. But Jesus helps this man anyway. And that was the message yesterday at church, was like, it's easy to help people when they're your people, right? It's hard to help someone who has wronged you. It's hard to love somebody who hasn't shown love to you. And that was kind of the message yesterday at church, but it obviously it all tied into that whole, like, it's easy to walk around and say, like, you're a Christian. It's difficult to say I'm a Jesus follower. Like, how many people actually go around helping the people that have hurt them? Like, I would say it's almost no one. Almost no one in today's world goes around helping people that have hurt them. Man, I actually didn't really want to go into that part. I wanted to try to tie this into a like, be aware of the things going on around you and when signs pop up and things like that. But I just really wanted to, I gotta keep kind of pounding that in, like, just because Saturday we talked about it on the show, how it's like, do some people become Christians because it's almost as a scapegoat of, like, all I have to do is love God and love my neighbor and I can win, right? Like, I can be a good person. But it goes way deeper than that when you really think about it. Like, love your neighbor means, like, love everyone. Love, and not just be like, yo, what up, I love you. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what it means. So, man, I'm not even sure how to tie this up, but, like, I hope the point comes across. There's no real way to know. I'm terrible at this kind of thing, but I'm not a pastor. But, and I didn't actually want to get religious-y on this episode. I wanted to talk about, like I said before, like, I wanted to talk about how when signs pop up, like, you should pay attention to them. And this is a clear sign for me. Like, I'm not sure exactly what it is yet, as far as, like, is there a person that I'm supposed to reach out to that's either I've done wrong or has done wrong to me? Is there, I don't know what the circumstance is yet. Just say I love you, Wes. That's all you have to do. My boy Wes. But there's obviously something going on. Like, this message has popped up now twice in 2 days, and I'm actually thinking back to, like, Friday when I was riding around in my truck. When I'm in my truck most of the time, I'm listening to a podcast called Exploring My Strange Bible. And if you've never listened to it, it's really, really good. It's really, really good. This guy takes the Bible. Right now, the part I'm listening to is the book of Matthew. So it actually pertains to the Sermon on the Mount, because that's where the Sermon on the Mount happens, in the book of Matthew. It happens in other places too, but or it's talked about in other places too. But the Matthew version of it is a really strong version. But anyway, he goes through the book of Matthew, and he's taking it like almost like verse for verse, right? And breaking it down into the actual written version of the Bible and interpreting it. So like interpreting words differently than the way that we read them in English, because they were interpreted wrong to begin with, right? It's really cool. But he was one of the episodes I listened to recently, and I don't remember if it was Friday or not, but it was really recent, was talking about forgiveness and things like that. And I was like there are people in the world, in my life that I probably should forgive for things that, and like, man, this actually came up again too. Another podcast that I listened to called the Gary V Audio Experience. He had an episode recently where this kid called in and they were chatting back and forth, and Gary basically gave him like a call to action of like, call these people that have call these people that have wronged you or whatever, and you have kind of pushed out of your life, or text them or whatever, and just apologize. Just be like, yo man, like, I'm sorry, my bad, whatever, right? If they don't accept it, that's fine, whatever. But like, he gave them this call to action of like, my bad. So that's actually like 4 times recently that there's been this like connection of the same kind of message popping up. So like, there's clearly something I'm supposed to be hearing, right? I just got to figure out what it is. And that was supposed to be the point of this show, was to say that at some point, on some level, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, is always talking to us, right? It's always pointing us in a direction, it seems like. It's just up to us to figure out what that is. So I'm going to try to figure out what it is. Why does this phone over here, the Instagram one, keeps trying to go black, and I don't know why. So whatever. Yeah, thanks, September. Do not hold hate in your heart, September says, and spread love. Yeah, exactly. Like, that's all, hey, that's big words. Big words. Spread the love. I got a buddy out in, well, not a buddy, a guy I've met before, called Mr. Spread the Love, out in Panama City. He's the guy that stands with the signs and wears the airbrushed shirts, the bright airbrushed shirts. I don't know if you guys have seen him. He's pretty cool. So yeah, love your neighbor. If you can see the shirt, boom, love your neighbor. That was the point of this episode, was to kind of get through that. I've got to figure out what all this is meaning and what it means to me. Maybe there's something in your life that has been popping up over and over again, right? And you need to figure out what's going on for you. And maybe this triggers, that for you, and you go out and figure out what's going on. So I sure hope so. If not, be ready to watch tomorrow's episode of Revelations with Ray tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Ray will go live on the Facebook Grayscale podcast page, not on this Instagram one that I'm on over here. Go check out BetweenThievesApparel.com. They just did some revamping of their website. It looks a little different than it did before. I don't think our discount code is the Grayscale 10 discount code is working right now, but it will be again soon. So make sure to, if you do go and it doesn't work, just hold off. It'll be working soon, and you can check that out. So, yeah. In the meantime, love your neighbor. Rep God. Go check out BetweenThievesApparel.com. Share this, like this, all that stuff with all your friends. Make sure you're listening to the podcast, the audio podcast. That is the thing we actually need you to be actually clicking on and listening to if you have time. And yeah, that's it. The grayscale is going black.